Hey, man, no wonder you can't keep a girl.
Man, you see that? I'm worrying about being kicked out of school and you busy signifying.
I'm sorry.
Besides, your mama like it.
Good living in bad places. I'm the Wiz. Everybody, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this review, please leave a like at the end of this video. And if you want to watch more, please subscribe. I do 3 reviews a week on this channel. All right, everybody, I'm here to review the 1975 classic in black cinema, Cooley High, directed by Michael Schultz. Unlike most people who love this film, the first time I heard about Cooley High was in 2020. After the summer of 2020, the Criterion Collection announced they were going to make a more concerted effort to present more black cinema on their label. Honestly, when I heard this announcement, I was a little puzzled. I was kind of confused. The Criterion Collection may not have as much black cinema as German Expressionism or French New Wave, but at the time they had great films like Do the Right Thing and other beloved films like Black Girl. But in hindsight, it shouldn't have been weird at all. There were a ton of black cinema I knew nothing about that people were clamoring for an updated release. Films such as Hollywood Shuffle and The Watermelon Woman were ones that Criterion brought back that many appreciated. But the one film that I kept seeing being requested on forums and on groups I frequented was Cooley High. Now, Cooley High is a film that follows a group of young high school boys living in the projects of Chicago's near North Side in 1964. These boys spend their times going to school, well, when they decide to, and roaming the streets, going to parties, chasing girls, and just causing mischief. And for the first half of the film, Cooley High feels more like Dazed and Confused. It's plotless and goes around just following the boys with what they are doing. And what's refreshing watching this film is how warm and positive it is despite being in a very poor side of the town. Sure, there is danger of some sorts for these kids, but they end up having lives that are rather carefree and happy. This is especially true when focused on the main characters of the film, which are Cochise, played by Lawrence Hilton-Jacobs, and Preach, played by Glenn Thurman. Both seem to have talent to get themselves out of the place they are living, one with athletic skills and the other a writer. But as much as these kids do want to leave and better themselves, they do enjoy the life they live and the people they interact with, for the most part. And this is something I am really not used to seeing in a lot of these types of films, especially ones that are set in this type of place. It feels not like they want to escape, but just be better. Now, we can name numerous examples of films set in the projects where it's all about surviving until the next day and finding that one thing that will get you out of the muck. Well, that last part is largely taken care of, but this film doesn't necessarily look at their living as bad, just hard. The people who Cochise and Preach interact with are mostly good people, just not in a good space. And it's strikingly refreshing to see that in a film like this. But by the second half of the film, Cooley High kind of gels into a specific plot point, one which I will not spoil. What is interesting is how the film presents the second half and what happens at the end. Cooley High doesn't seem to have people who are largely bad or evil, just either misunderstood with their emotional responses, or basically those who are trying to survive the best way they know how. And when the film hits well dramatically at the end, it doesn't necessarily hit hard emotionally for me. Frankly, this has a lot to do with the way that the first half played out. The first half felt like there really wasn't a main character for you to connect with, since it was more about seeing the way these kids live their lives. By the second half, the film suddenly centers on Cochise and Preach, which honestly makes sense to do since they are the best characters of the film. You don't spend much time getting to know these kids in a deep way, you just see what they do. But the last thing that works really well in this movie is the soundtrack, and my god, this soundtrack is excellent. Choosing a selection of hits from Motown, the film fits real well with such great songs from the famed company. Now, are these songs important for the plot? No, not really, but they just fit well with what's going on during the film. You know, a part of me is torn on Cooley High. I get why it did the first half of the film as more plotless than most, and it's incredibly effective, showing a time and place that feels vibrant and full of life. I think the film would have done better by sticking to that, while finding another way towards the end that the film wanted. But by making the second half rigid, it concentrates on the best characters in an effective dramatic turn, while sacrificing what made the first half so great. Cooley High is still a good film, and one that I understand why people wanted re-released, but it feels to me like a film that was striving for something more freeform, but then took a safer route towards the end. All right, so before I get into my rating, let's see what other people think about this film. Letterboxd users has this at a 3.7 out of 5. Rotten Tomatoes has this at a fresh 89%, and this was not nominated for any Oscars at all. I'm going to give Cooley High a 3 stars out of 5. I enjoyed this film. I thought it was funny in spots, and I thought dramatically it worked well. I definitely enjoyed the first half better when it was more free form and getting to know what the life of these kids were like and what life was like around that time in that area. But by the second half, they made the plot a lot more rigid, and while I think it was effective dramatically, I didn't really get the emotional hit that I was really expecting towards the end, and I think that's mainly due to the fact that you don't really get to know the kids all that well. You just get to know what their life is like from the first half. There's a little bit of a disconnect with me. I think the film is fun, I think it's a good movie, and I love the soundtrack of this film, so definitely one worth checking out if you haven't seen. So, 3 stars out of 5 for me for Cooley High. I watched this on Amazon Prime, but I believe it's also available on Tubi and Pluto if you are interested and don't have Amazon Prime. So I would say check this out if you are definitely interested in the film. All right, so before I go, let me ask you a question. If you're into the Criterion Collection, or let's even branch this out further. If you're into any of the labels that re-release movies in like special packaging, like we're talking about Arrow, Kino Lorber, a Criterion Collection, Vinegar Syndrome, is there a movie that you want to see re-released that hasn't been re-released? My answer would probably be American Splendor from the 2000s with Paul Giamatti. What a great movie. It is still only available on DVD. I still have the DVD, but I would love to have a Blu-ray or a 4K of that movie. It's such a great movie. But what is your selection? Let me know in the comments. All right, everybody, and that is it for this review. Thank you again for watching. See you guys next time.
We were friends a long time ago. Laughing, rapping, chasing girls, obeying no laws except the one of caring. Basketball days and high nights. No tomorrows. Unable to remember yesterday. We live for today.